Think how quickly fashion changes. One decade, everyone wears tight neon clothes, and the very next, society overcorrects to oversized muted colors. This is actually how English literature works. It isn't a static timeline of books. It's a living record of writers riding a cultural pendulum, swinging between strict rules and wild rebellion for over 1,000 years. Every book was written by someone having an emotional reaction to their world at that exact moment. If you want to understand these classic stories, you don't need to memorize old vocabulary. You just need to figure out which historical rules the author was trying to break. Our first swing starts in a harsh, freezing world. Between the years 450 and 1066, the Anglo-Saxon period was defined by a landscape where survival was the only goal. That environment required strict codes of loyalty and courage. You can see this reflected in the original manuscript of Beowulf. This story is filled with heroes battling literal monsters in the dark, a mirror of a society that was constantly battling the elements just to stay alive. But in 1066, that culture was violently interrupted. The Normans invaded from France, bringing a new language and totally different social values. The pendulum swung. Old survival stories blended with French ideas about knights and chivalry. This created the Middle English period, giving us works like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, which mixed those two very different worlds together. This early history shows us a clear pattern. The language we speak and the stories we value are tied directly to who holds the power in the land. By the 1500s, Europe was waking up. The Renaissance brought a focus on human potential rather than just survival, leading to an explosion of creativity and theatrical drama. William Shakespeare mastered this moment. He wrote plays that captured the newly discovered complex depths of human emotion. But after decades of explosive, theatrical emotion, society usually exhausts itself. People start to crave order, safety, and clear boundaries. So the pendulum swung hard into the neoclassical period. From 1660 to 1785, writers actively suppressed messy feelings and focused instead on strict logic, reason, and proper public behavior. They looked back to ancient Greece and Rome, trying to make their poetry as perfectly balanced and predictable as a row of marble columns. By locking literature in this cage of rigid perfection, these writers practically guaranteed that the next generation would want to tear it all down. And they did. The Romantic period was a violent rejection of all that careful logic. Writers abandoned the cities and championed raw emotion and the spiritual power of wild nature. Poets like William Wordsworth wandered the hillsides for inspiration, while Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein as a warning about the dangers of cold, unfeeling science. But romantic daydreams were soon blocked out by the smokestacks of the Industrial Revolution. The Victorian period arrived, bringing massive factories and crowded, dirty cities. Writers like Charles Dickens couldn't write about quiet nature anymore. They had to look at the reality in front of them, focusing their novels on urban poverty and social problems. The pendulum hit a wall with the World Wars. The scale of the trauma in the trenches broke the steady rhythm of history. Writers like T.S. Eliot and Virginia Woolf stopped trying to write tidy, linear plots. Instead, they wrote in jagged, fragmented bursts that jump from one internal thought to the next, because that's the only way a story felt honest in a world that had been completely blown apart. Today, we live in the aftermath of that shattering. Our modern literature often distrusts absolute rules and uses irony to make sense of a world where there are no easy answers. You can see how interconnected it all is. You don't get the modern rule breakers without the neoclassical rule makers. Victorian realism was the direct cure for romantic daydreaming. These books are far more vital than a grammar exercise. They are the living record of how people managed the same human pressures we feel today. Every time you open one of these stories, you are opening a genuine time capsule. You are listening to a human being from centuries ago, trying desperately to make sense of their rapidly changing world. And when you look closely, that is exactly what we are still trying to do today.